Not all nightmares happen when you're asleep. The stories you're about to hear are real, submitted by people who have stared into the abyss and felt it stare back. These are unsettling encounters, moments when the ordinary world peels back to reveal a chilling reality lurking just beneath the surface. Tonight, we'll delve into 3 true stories: an unwelcome visitor in the night, a room that shouldn't exist, and the terror of being watched in the deep woods. Find a quiet place, turn down the lights, and prepare yourself. These are true, scary stories. Chloe's story happened during a particularly harsh winter, a winter that seemed to grip the entire town in its icy embrace. The days were short, the nights were long, and a constant blanket of snow covered everything, muffling sounds and creating an eerie stillness. It was the kind of winter that made you want to huddle inside, safe and warm, away from the biting wind and the relentless cold. She had just moved into her first apartment, a small ground-floor unit on the very edge of town. It was a place of her own, a symbol of her independence, but it also felt a little isolated, especially during those long winter nights. The apartment building itself was old and a little run down, with creaky floors and thin walls. One snowy night, as the wind howled outside and the snow continued to fall in thick swirling flakes, she was sound asleep, or at least she had been, until she was woken by a soft, persistent tapping, a gentle but insistent sound that slowly pulled her from the depths of her slumber. It wasn't at her window, where the wind might have been playing tricks, but at her front door, the only barrier between her and the outside world. At first, still half asleep, she tried to dismiss it as her imagination, or perhaps just the settling of the old building, but the sound was too deliberate, too secretive to be anything natural. It had a purpose, an intent behind it. As she lay there, frozen in place, listening intently, the tapping suddenly stopped, leaving an unnerving silence in its wake. Then, just as she began to breathe a sigh of relief, came a metallic scraping at the lock, a chilling sound that sent a shiver down her spine. Someone was outside, actively trying to break in, to violate the sanctity of her home. Frozen with fear, her mind racing, Chloe instinctively flicked on the lights, hoping to scare away whoever was lurking outside. The scraping abruptly stopped, the sudden illumination seemingly having startled the intruder. Then, a low, malicious chuckle came from the other side of the door, a sound that was far more terrifying than any forced entry could have been. It was a sound that promised violence, a sound that spoke of cruel intentions and a complete disregard for her safety. Chloe, her heart pounding in her chest, grabbed her phone with trembling hands and frantically called 911. She whispered her address into the phone, terrified that the intruder would hear her and realize she was calling for help. The operator, calm and reassuring, told her to stay on the line and assured her that help was on the way. She waited, paralyzed with fear, every nerve on high alert, as faint shuffling sounds continued outside her door, a constant reminder of the danger lurking just inches away. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the distant wail of sirens grew louder and louder as police cars approached. Footsteps crunched away quickly in the snow, the sound fading into the distance as the intruder fled. Police arrived within minutes to find a clear set of footprints leading to and from her door, evidence of the terrifying encounter. They also found fresh scratch marks on the lock, a stark reminder of how close she had come to being violated. Despite their best efforts, the intruder was gone, vanished into the night, and was never identified. Chloe, understandably shaken to her core, moved out of the apartment a week later, unable to shake the feeling of vulnerability. Her sense of safety, once a given, was now shattered into a million pieces, leaving her constantly on edge. Even now, years later, she still checks her locks multiple times before bed, a ritual born out of fear and a desperate need for control. She remains haunted by the memory of that night, the chilling chuckle, the scraping at the lock, the feeling of being utterly helpless. Sometimes, the scariest monsters aren't the creatures of myth and legend, but real people, capable of unspeakable acts. They are hidden by the darkness, masked by anonymity, and driven by motives that are often incomprehensible. For Chloe, that thin wooden door so easily breached was all that stood between her and a nightmare come to life. It was a fragile barrier against something truly terrifying, something that could have changed her life forever. The midnight visitor, a faceless threat in the darkness, was never caught, leaving Chloe to grapple with the lingering fear and the unsettling reality that sometimes the most terrifying monsters walk among us. Mark and his wife Sarah always dreamed of owning a Victorian house. They were captivated by the intricate details, the high ceilings, and the sense of history that seemed to permeate every room. When they finally found the perfect place, a grand old house on the outskirts of town, they were ecstatic. They envisioned spending years restoring it to its former glory, until they found something hidden, something that would forever change their perception of their dream home. The initial excitement of renovation slowly morphed into a chilling unease as they began to uncover secrets within the old house's walls. While renovating the master bedroom closet, a space they intended to transform into a luxurious walk-in, Mark discovered a concealed trapdoor. It was cleverly hidden beneath a section of the floorboards, almost invisible to the untrained eye. Curiosity piqued, he carefully pried it open, revealing a dark and mysterious space below. Beneath it was a small, windowless room, a stark contrast to the grandeur of the rest of the house. The air hung heavy and still, carrying a faint, musty odor that spoke of long years of neglect. The room was sealed off with a dirt floor that felt cold and damp beneath Mark's feet, and a single child-sized chair facing the wall. The chair seemed oddly placed, its small size and simple design hinting at a history that was both unsettling and intriguing. The walls were covered in tally marks, hundreds scratched deep into the wood. They were not random scribbles, but deliberate, carefully etched lines that seemed to count something, perhaps the passage of time or something far more sinister. Near the floor, at a height that suggested a small child had made them, frantic words were carved. "I'm a bad boy." Over and over, a desperate plea etched into the very fabric of the room. The repetition was chilling, suggesting a mind trapped in a cycle of fear and self-reproach. The room radiated sorrow and fear, a palpable sense of suffering that hung heavy in the air. It wasn't a storage space. It was a punishment room, a place of isolation and torment. Mark fled, shaken to his core by the darkness he had unearthed. He couldn't shake the image of the small chair, the tally marks, and the desperate words etched into the walls. He and his wife tried to forget, covering the trapdoor with a heavy rug and avoiding the closet altogether. They told themselves it was just an old house with a strange history, nothing to be afraid of. But at night, they sometimes heard faint scratching or a child's weeping from below, sounds that seemed to seep through the floorboards and into their dreams. The sounds were subtle, easily dismissed as the creaks and groans of an old house settling. But they knew, deep down, that it was something more. The house no longer felt like a home, but a tomb of forgotten misery, a place haunted by the echoes of a troubled past. The joy they once felt had been replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. After a year of sleepless nights, filled with unsettling dreams and the constant fear of what lurked beneath the floorboards, they made the difficult decision to sell the house, never revealing the secret room to the new owners. They couldn't bear the thought of passing on the burden of that dark secret. Mark still feels guilty for withholding the truth, but the darkness of that place was too much to pass on, a weight he couldn't in good conscience inflict on someone else. Now, in a new home, far away from the Victorian house and its hidden horrors, he can't forget the hidden room and the suffering it held, the silent screams trapped within its walls. The image of that small chair facing the wall continues to haunt his waking hours. Some secrets are buried for a reason, best left undisturbed in the darkness. The past can haunt the present, lingering in the walls, whispering its secrets to those who dare to listen. Old houses hold memories, both good and bad, and sometimes the bad ones are best left undisturbed. Mark's story is a chilling reminder. Not all history should be uncovered. Not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some doors are best left unopened. Sometimes the scariest things are hidden in plain sight, concealed beneath the surface of the ordinary. It's a reminder to be cautious about what we seek, for we may not always like what we find. And some rooms are best left forgotten, their secrets buried deep within the walls, undisturbed for eternity. David's childhood was steeped in the tranquility of the Pacific Northwest. He grew up near dense Oregon woods, a sprawling expanse of towering trees and tangled undergrowth. For a young boy with an active imagination, it was a place of adventure, a boundless playground where reality blurred with fantasy. Every fallen log was a bridge to another world, every rustle in the leaves a whispered secret. But the woods held a darker side, a sense of the unknown that both thrilled and unsettled him. And one night, that darkness would step out of the shadows and change everything. At 16, fueled by youthful bravado and a thirst for the forbidden, he and his friend Liam, inseparable since kindergarten, set out for a night hike, venturing deeper into the woods than they ever had before. They aimed for a favorite clearing, a secluded spot bathed in moonlight, hoping to reach it as darkness fell and the forest transformed into something magical, something otherworldly. Initially, the forest was peaceful, almost unnervingly so. The usual symphony of crickets and rustling leaves was muted, replaced by an eerie silence that hung heavy in the air. Then, without warning, a heavy branch snapped nearby, the sound echoing through the stillness like a gunshot. At first, trying to maintain their composure, they dismissed it as a deer, or perhaps a raccoon foraging for food. But the sounds grew closer, heavier, deliberate, no longer the random movements of an animal, but something purposeful, something stalking. Their flashlights cutting through the inky blackness revealed nothing, only the endless rows of trees and the impenetrable undergrowth. But the feeling of being watched, of unseen eyes boring into them from the darkness, was overwhelming, a primal fear gripping them both. Reason gave way to instinct. They decided to leave, their earlier bravado replaced by a desperate need to escape, moving quickly down the trail, their hearts pounding in their chests. Then, the unthinkable happened. Footsteps began to follow, mimicking their movements, growing louder with each stride. Whatever was back there was matching their pace, crashing through the underbrush with terrifying force, closing the distance between them. Panic set in, raw and consuming. They broke into a sprint, their lungs burning, their legs pumping, desperate to outrun the unseen terror. They were chased by something huge and unseen, something that defied explanation, something that belonged in a nightmare. David, driven by a desperate curiosity, glanced back and saw a massive, featureless black shape, a void in the darkness. It was taller than a man, impossibly tall, and moving with unnatural speed, gliding through the trees as if they weren't even there. They burst from the woods into the safety of streetlights, the familiar glow a beacon of hope in the overwhelming darkness. The crashing stopped abruptly at the tree line, as if an invisible barrier had been reached. Nothing emerged from the darkness, no explanation, no resolution, only the lingering fear and the chilling certainty that they had witnessed something impossible. Their parents, understandably skeptical, dismissed their story as an overactive imagination fueled by late-night horror movies. But David and Liam knew what they'd seen. The terror etched into their memories, a shared secret that bound them together. They never hiked at night again, the allure of the darkness forever tainted by the memory of that night. And they avoided the woods for years, the familiar paths now symbols of fear and the unknown. The memory of that shadow, that fleeting glimpse into something beyond comprehension, never faded. Formless, impossible, a violation of the natural order, it defied logic and reason. It still haunts David, a constant reminder of the night the woods revealed their true, terrifying nature. He has no explanation, no scientific theory, no rationalization that can account for what he saw, only the certainty that something was out there, lurking in the darkness, something ancient and unknowable. Sometimes the woods hold secrets we're not meant to understand, mysteries that are best left undisturbed. The safest thing is to stay in the light, to cling to the familiar and avoid the allure of the unknown. Some questions are better left unanswered, some doors are better left unopened. And some shadows once encountered never truly leave you, forever lurking at the edge of your perception, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lies just beyond the light. The silence of a home, the shadows in the woods, a locked door, none guarantee safety. Chloe, Mark, and David's stories remind us how fragile our sense of security truly is. The world is full of unanswered questions and unexplained events. What was the midnight visitor's intent? What sorrow lingers in that hidden room? What chased two boys through the woods? We may never know. If you have a story of your own, share it in the comments or by email. You might be featured next. Until next time, stay safe. Sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true,